When people forget complex events, they're often not aware that they've forgotten. They rather push on ahead with an imaginative reconstruction of the event as best they can remember it. So if a person forgets a story or some complex event, such as an accident or a crime that he's witnessed, he loses more and more detail. He tends to schematize and summarize it so that his recall becomes guided by the general gist of the interpretation that he gave to the story or the event. As the direct sensory evidence from the experience begins to fade from memory, the person's subjective interpretation of it assumes greater weight in his reconstruction. In these circumstances, the recaller becomes more likely to reveal his attitudes and his stereotypes regarding the persons, the actions, the events he is supposedly remembering. Let's look at these distortions as they occur as the story of an incident is passed from one person to another in a rumor chain. Gwen, I'd like to tell you a story. Later on, I might ask you to repeat it to someone. On an express train to Van Cortlandt Park, a violent argument broke out between a black man and a white man. It was about 3:40 in the afternoon, and the train had just stopped at Dyckman Street. The tall, better-dressed man was a black, and the white was in working man's uniform. The men were standing in the center of the train. There were 6 other passengers on the train. On the left of the men was a man reading the Boston Globe, and a middle-aged woman wearing eyeglasses and carrying a purse. To the right of the men was a woman with a bow in her hair holding a baby in her lap. There was a rabbi holding a black book in his lap. He was looking at the men arguing. A heavy-set, bald Oriental man slept next to the rabbi. The poorly dressed man held a knife in his left hand and shook the fist of his right hand. 2 of the 4 ads on the roof of the subway car said, "Smoke Lucky Rakes" and "Vacation at Camp Idlewild." Now, you've heard my description of the story. Now I want you to tell it as accurately as you can to another person.
This is something that happened on a subway to Cortland. A black man and a white man got into a violent argument. One was well-dressed and the other one was wearing workman's clothes. One had a switchblade in his right hand and was swinging it around as he shouted. There were some passengers watching the fight. There was a middle-aged woman who had lost her purse, and a mother who was holding a baby in her lap who had a bow in its head, and a rabbi dozing next to an Oriental. The signs on the subway car said, "Smoke Lucky Strikes," and "Fly Out of Idlewild." The argument got quite violent until the men were subdued by some of the passengers.
There was a fight on the subway to Portland, and there was a black working man fighting with a white businessman. And some woman had lost her purse, and I think that had something to do with it. And then the black guy was swinging his switchblade at the white guy. And there was a woman, a baby was watching, and there was a rabbi sleeping beside an Oriental. Somebody was smoking Lucky Strikes. I think it was a black guy, and then a cop came in and broke it all up.
This is about a fight that happened somewhere in Portland. A black worker stole a lady's purse, and the white man in a business suit caught him. And they started fighting, rolling around, throwing punches. And the black guy pulls out a razor and starts slashing at the white guy, who's screaming. And everybody's watching. A Chinese man, a rabbi, and then a cop comes and arrests the black guy and hauls him off to jail.
As the rumor is passed along, each person shrinks it a little, simplifies it, and adds his small inventions to it. The central dramatic event, the argument, becomes exaggerated into a violent and deadly fight. Peripheral details that are not related to that central action are soon forgotten. For instance, the place is distorted, and the time, the ads, most of the spectators are forgotten. As the rumor circulates, we begin to notice false stereotypes creeping in and distorting the story. The false stereotype or prejudice here is racial. We see that any facts inconsistent with that stereotype are either forgotten or switched around. Thus, the well-dressed man changes from black to white. The black changes into a working man, while the white becomes a businessman. The knife changes into a switchblade, then a razor, and shifts from the white to the black man, who is then said to be the aggressor. You've seen how perfectly ordinary people may be victimized by unconscious memory illusions, tending to distort their recall to be consistent with false stereotypes. Had these subjects been black, or even a different group of whites, the distortions might have been entirely different. The lesson, of course, is to be on guard against stereotypes in categorizing people, and to be on the lookout for such biases when you recall emotional events that are on the dim margins of your remembrances.